The 100% Wild podcast is brought to you by OnX Hunt, the nation's #1 GPS hunting app. Download today in the Google Play and App Store.
Hey, hunting junkies, and welcome back to another spine-tingling episode of the Drury Outdoors 100% Wild podcast. I'm one of the spine tinglers, Tim Chelsvik.
I don't know what parts I'm tingling, but I'm Matt Drury, the other co-host.
Just spines. It's the only thing you'll get tickled here on this show.
Thank God. So, hey, here's what I want to start out with.
We have to also mention that we're proudly brought to you by the OnX Hunt app.
That's right. We do have to proudly mention that. That's right. You're representing today.
I love this shirt. There are some shirts that you get that are crappy.
Cheap.
Yeah. And you
just
can tell.
Straight cotton.
You don't want to wear them, but this is I like the cut of this jib.
Well, it's...
You were going to say you like it. You don't have to say it.
No, what I was going to say is that's going to cost them extra. A personal endorsement.
Wow, that came from Tim Chelsvik. Big deal.
Well, I wanted to start out with a little bit of news. And this news comes from my home. I finally received my elk that I shot in northern Utah at Wild Country Adventures back in 2017. I think it was like early October. And I had it mounted out there. And then once they finished it, I just ship it back here to the St. Louis area. And dude, it's awesome.
It's a massive. What did it end up scoring?
It went 330.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a 330 bull. And, I'm sure these guys will link to the video because there's a video up on YouTube for it or whatever. But it's a cool mount. Obviously that was the first elk I ever shot. Mm-hmm. So I have never had any mount that was bigger than a deer head.
It's a little bigger than a deer head.
Oh my gosh. So, I was trying to figure out where to put this thing and I have a 2-story home, and in the house, when you walk in the front door, it's kind of a vaulted ceiling, kind of a look but you look, the steps are right there. So you go up the steps and then you see the second floor, like hall and a banister that kind of looks down on it. And it's really the only option. I wanted to bring it here to the studio, but we just didn't have anywhere that it would work or fit.
Except for my office.
Yeah. And this is where all my other mounts are because my wife wears the pants in our family.
That is a delicate conversation to have. Yeah. Where the mounts are going to go.
Yeah. So either at my house, they can go in the basement, which is fixed up, but no one actually goes into, or it's my man cave that I'm not quite a man in. It's got all the kids'
earned
junk.
It yet. It's there.
So I'd like to put it somewhere where I could see the dang thing.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So right away, to my wife's credit, when I killed the bull, she said, she's like, are you getting it mounted? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And she's like, well, where were you thinking of putting it? And I was like, this is going in the house. And she's like, yeah, that's cool. She never said, I think she was as excited as I was when I killed it.
Okay.
And then I held her to it. So I held her to her word. And, we got these 2 walls and then the wall that is on top of the entryway door. Mm-hmm. And I was going to put her on one of the side walls, and it's kind of like where all our family photos were. And she was not really happy about this.
This elk is not a part of our family.
Yeah. She basically looked at it like it was a cow or a horse or, it's like when it came in this box.
It's a major award.
She's like, holy crap, it's huge. And I'm like, yeah, it's huge.
It's fragile on the side.
Yeah. So she was like, I think it, and she had been saying this before I got it, but she was wanting to put it above the door. I thought it was super weird because you come in an entryway door, and then you look up and this freaking head's
loomed upon.
And then not only that, but you slam the door or whatever. And I'm not the best, at hanging things, as my wife likes to remind me of. And so anyway, I had kind of resisted that, but ultimately it was the best place to put it. Just by the way the architecture of this house was, it was the best spot for it. So my brother-in-law Ryan and I we go to hang this thing on Friday and we get it up there. I only had to put one extra hole in the wall because I miscalculated the way that
you drilled a test hole.
Yeah, about about 2 feet. No, actually, I'll tell you exactly how far. 16 inches to the right.
Okay.
Because I was trying to hit a stud, and I had a lax screw, and I wanted to make sure I was right in that stud.
It's only a problem for the next homeowner.
Yeah, exactly.
None of your concern now.
So we got that sucker up there, and I put the whole iPhone up on the banister on the second floor and like shot a video just in case we could be one of those really funny fail viral videos that's not funny to the person it happens to. And luckily, knock on wood, we didn't need it, but we got it up, and this thing is awesome, man. It is bad to the bone, man. It's cool.
You showed me some of the pictures, and it kind of looks like you're walking into a lodge.
It does.
It has that vibe.
Yeah, and the way that entryway is, there's a big, massive window right above it, so it's kind of cool because the sun comes up on that side of the house, and it's just kind of like this bull is just out there and the sun's shining on him. It's
legit.
It is legit. So it got me in the feels, man. It was like, oh, I wish I could go back. It's probably a once in a lifetime deal, but maybe not. But man, it brought back all the right memories, memories. And the first thing I thought of, because every day now I'm looking at this thing, you can't go down the steps without it staring at you. And we're constantly looking at it, and the kids get a kick out of it. They love it. And every time I look at it, it reminds me of the exact day, the moment, the place. I understand it's only, not even 2 years old. So the memory's still somewhat fresh, but then it got me thinking about mounts in general and why people do it. And that ultimately,
because we have extra money laying around.
Well, I don't know. I didn't know I had that much extra money, but luckily I spread it out over 2 years to pay for that thing.
Good
but
time.
It's a thing that it just reminds you, it takes you back to the moments. And I started thinking about, in my office and some of the other deer. And every time I look at one, I think about the moment that I harvested that animal.
Completely.
And that's what it's all about, right? That's why one of the reasons why we do it, those memories made in the field and the people you get to share it with and experience it with. And it was just a cool way to look back on it.
And you think about the legacy involved there, because Cameron or Lola may end up with that mount someday. I remember when my dad was still alive, he told me that he shot an 11-point buck. It was probably back in 1986 or something in Illinois. He's like, I want you to have that someday. That's not something we're going to sell off in a garage sale or something when we need some space in the house. And I know that, like, every time I look at that mount, I think of my dad and that hunt and him coming home with it in the back of the pickup. And I was just a little kid. So it's just, it's worth good taxidermy is expensive. Yeah. But it's always worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyways, I just wanted to share that. It's fresh on my mind. I wanted to share it. And there was a point to the story, not just me humble bragging that I got my
shot a huge elk. I don't know. What'd you shoot, Tim?
And hey, by the way, go click the link and watch the video. And above and beyond all that, the point of the story was the purpose behind, the obsession with people, having mounts, or even if it's a European mount or whatever it is, it's just the memories. It's thinking back on that time and place. So, and
there's we'll get into this some other time. There's a whole psychology around the meaning and symbology behind antlers and horns.
I look forward to going into that.
It gets biblical.
Gets deep.
We'll do that.
Does it get sexual?
With you, it probably would.
Why say it with me? You're the one that's always got your mind in the gutter.
Don't blame it on me. We should probably bring some order.
Mind. Yeah, let's get your mind out of the gutter.
Let's bring some order. Let's bring our guest on board. We are glad to welcome Mr. Aaron Gould, one half of the Gould brothers.
The better half, I would assume, since he's on today.
Exhibition shooters extraordinaire.
I made it to the podcast, right? So I got to be the better brother.
That's right. And I see you got a mount behind you right now here. So what's the meaning behind that one?
It was the first buck I actually chased for a couple years, and mature buck that I was able to put my hands on. So that was name was Topsy. Chased him for 2 years, and that was the only time I ever seen him. He didn't get away.
Well, I'm sure he didn't with the y'all shooting ability. Jeez. I don't know if our listeners and viewers have had a chance to watch these guys, but it is unbelievable, the trick shots and the talent and what these guys can do with a weapon in hand. And it really doesn't matter what kind of weapon. They're just really, really good. They're dead on with all of them.
Well, we like to have a lot of fun. We go all over the country performing live exhibition shows or trick shooting shows. We just are down in Missouri this last week, and we've been in Florida and just all over the country. So And then the other thing that we do is we do online content for brands in the outdoor industry. So we're primarily known for our shotgunning, but we're willing to pick up a bow or an air gun or whatever. If it shoots a projectile, we're ready to shoot it and have some fun with it.
I had a chance to meet these guys in person over in Alton, Illinois last summer.
What are they like?
Yeah, well, they're just okay as people, but their shooting ability. No, they were great guys. And the cool part was this was a thing for Winchester. It was a Winchester Summit, Winchester Ammunition, and they're a partner of the Gould brothers as well. And that was when they were telling us about the Winchester 350 Legend. Sure. And it was kind of a top secret deal, but that was day one. Day two, we got to go over to the shooting range was it at Nilo or where were we?
Nilo.
Yeah, Nilo. And watching these guys.
Is Nilo just Olin spelled backwards?
I think so, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Was that a smart aleck comment or was that true?
What should I say?
Well, okay, whatever. So anyhow, these guys were shooting. We had the ability. They had all kinds of different, trap shooting and whatever. They had all these things that we could do. And there was probably, 30 of us there. And there was a couple of their professional shooters and then, the Gould brothers. And it was a clinic that these guys were putting on, and it was Dad and I. So we're probably talking about the two weakest link of the four juries when it comes to shooting. And so Dad elected to pass, and he's old, so he's got shoulder issues and all that stuff.
He's got an excuse.
Yeah, he's got a legitimate excuse. I actually had to participate. And dude, you want to talk? I may have shot clay probably 3 times in my life. Talk about humbling when you're a hunter that only pulls out a gun the week before gun season or the day before gun season. So twice a year, basically. And then watching these guys put on this clinic, it's unbelievable the talent these two have. Unbelievable.
When I watch you guys and obviously your videos are being featured in DeerCast, it really feels like the weapon, whatever it is just an extension of you. Like where you look is where the projectile is going to go. Is that like, what does it take to get to that point?
Well, when you're doing trick shots or you're doing anything well, what you spend your time practicing and doing day in and day out is what you're really good at. So, if it's hunting big deer, like the Drury's are doing all the time, and I'm always jealous of, they do it, they live at 365 and they're very good at what they do. We're out playing, I maybe shouldn't say playing with guns, but safely playing with guns. Yeah. We make safety a very high priority or the highest priority. And then comes fun and everything else with it. But it's what you do. It's what you practice, doing trick shots and setting them up and making videos or performing them live is what we do. I'll go out in fact, I just shot a Pro-Am sporting clay tournament when I was down in Branson this last week. And that's not what I do. Am I a bad shot? No, but it's not what I practice day in and day out. In fact, that's the first time I'd shot horizontal targets, since last summer sometime. And it takes a little bit to switch the type of shooting that you're doing. So you're good at what you do and what you practice.
So maybe back up a few steps. I'm fascinated by how people end up where they are. So how did you and your brother Steve end up in this role where you're traveling the country doing exhibit? Because it's kind of a dream job for most guys, but I imagine no one just handed you that title and said, "Here, have fun."
Well, let me see if I can do the short version of the story. I tend to get long-winded, but I grew up, I was introduced to hunting from an uncle of Steve and I's. And once I got the bug for hunting, I was hooked. So I started with rifle hunting for deer and for shooting squirrels and stuff. And then it was on to bows and muzzle loaders and just anything I could possibly hunt, waterfowl, whatever. Steve didn't have the same opportunities growing up and didn't get really into hunting until college. And it wasn't until after both of us graduated college, we moved back to our hometown area and we started shooting and hunting together just because now we had something that was that we both had in common. Before that, I was the outdoors guy, and Steve was sometimes the little punk running around getting into trouble, but and not really outdoors orientated.
Nothing wrong with that.
We come from a different background, but anyway, he found a love of the outdoors when he was out in North Dakota going to college and chasing waterfowl. So we moved back. We started hunting and shooting together, and we were out just practicing one summer. And I was like, look, I remember a few years ago I saw this video of this guy. I don't remember who his name was, but he was shooting with the gun over his head and behind his back and from the hip. And I honestly didn't believe it was real because I was a pretty good shooter. I mean, I'm a hunter. I can hit anything, right? That was a little bit of an exaggeration, but
we were just going to let you go with it, but whatever.
But basically, I'm looking at this video and going, dude, that no one can shoot like that. It's hard enough to shoot from the shoulder. Well, we started playing with some of these shots while we were out shooting, and at first it was just, well, can I hit one clay with the gun upside down over my head?
Mm-hmm.
And it just became addicting that we wanted to do it all the time. And before long, we weren't practicing hunting shots. We were practicing these exhibition shots or trick shots, shooting from different positions on our body or throwing 1, 2, 3, 4 clays up and trying to shoot them individually. And then, so we did that for a year or two. And then we found out that the man who I'd saw in this video was going to be just half an hour from our hometown performing an exhibition. And that man's name was Tom Knapp. And so we went over, we watched his live show. And let me tell you, seeing their first exhibition show for us was just amazing. Tom Knapp was a great showman, a great shooter. And we both walked away from that, met up a couple days later, and we both looked at each other and said, that's what we want to do.
Mm.
And so we were both fairly newly married at the time. This was around 2009.
To other people?
to other people. Yes,
we had last name the same. Said they came from different backgrounds. Follow along, Tim.
Silly me.
We grew up in the same house. We are real brothers. But
you can just tell us to shut up anytime.
Shut up.
All right.
So we got back together. We said, this is what we want to do. And so we went to our wives and we said, honey, we've got a plan. We're going to take 3 years and see where this dream leads us. And our wives graciously said,
see ya.
Hey, no, they didn't say see ya. They said, okay, you have fun. I think it helped that we put a limit on it. Like, we're going to shoot for this crazy dream for
3 years, though. That's not a short amount of time.
Well, I was going to say, like, to make money and still pay the bills, you know, after 3 months, you pretty much need to get with it.
Yeah. Well, that's just it. We had to work full-time jobs while we were working on things. And, you know, we didn't know anything about the outdoor industry, sponsorships, nothing. So long story short, we performed our first show in 2010 for 2 cases of ammunition. And we were probably overpaid for that first show.
Hold on, wait, we got to go over.
I thought you were going to say 2 cases of beer.
I thought so too.
Which makes sense.
These two things do not mix.
Not quite, just 2 cases of shells. So, but after that 3-year period, we had Winchester just came on board, and we were starting to develop partnerships with some of the national companies in the outdoor industry. And the rest is kind of history. We both, a few years later, went full time in our business. And but it was a struggle. You know, there was times in those years that I'd leave work on Friday, go do an event Saturday, Sunday, get dropped back off at work on Monday morning. Never even go home. Just throw the same work clothes back on and go back to work. So it was definitely a lot of work, but it's rewarding when you do have to work so hard for something. Just like, you know, these guys up here that, you know, it's just rewarding when you have to struggle a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that makes it that much sweeter. When and a lot of people that, you know, people that instantly come into a lot of money or or retire, they look back and they say the most fun I had was during the fight, like during the struggle, the scrapping and clawing every day to make something work. Now that I'm made, quote unquote, everything has kind of lost its luster. But you guys aren't slowing down. I mean, you're out there touring and doing appearances and getting booked. I mean, it sounds like a pretty hectic life schedule.
Well, there is a lot of travel involved. Our season's primarily, say, March to November. Mm-hmm. It's stretched out a little bit the last few years and is making hunting the rut in Minnesota a little bit more difficult. You got to take those days when you can. Right. But, we're on the road. We do about 25 to 30 live events every year. And in between that, we're filming for YouTube and different projects for sponsors. So we stay very busy during the short, warm months in Minnesota.
Mm-hmm. I was going to say, and that's this year, it's really short. Is it still a spring sprung up there yet?
It's pretty nice. It's about 60 degrees today. So,
hey,
it's the winter or late spring is just kind of drug on this year. I know there's a lot of farmers that wish they had their fields in, and I'm even looking at my schedule along with temperatures and I hope I can get some food plots in here. So we'll see.
Yeah.
One of the things I really appreciate about what you and your brother do is that you show kind of the heart of folks who own firearms, down to earth, salt of the earth, responsible, fun loving. And I don't think that's always the media's portrayal of those of us who own guns. It's like
vilified.
Yeah. The black helicopters, the preppers, like people who are just dying to use their gun in some terrible way. I don't know anyone like that who owns a firearm. That's like a media trope that they put out. But here you and your brother are traveling the country in a fun and safe way, showing people that these are simply tools. And I'm kind of curious, what's your experience been with when you book someplace and they find out, well, you're using firearms and there's guns involved. How do you deal with that in a culture that is that feels like firearms are such a taboo topic?
Well, it's kind of interesting. Most of the people that actually book us obviously know what we do. And and we're going into outdoor themed events, or we do a lot of corporate events for corporate clients, entertaining their top customers and things like that. But so it's usually a pretty open environment that we go into. But when we go into public events, and especially when we're traveling with firearms through the airports and stuff, you get a lot of funny looks. And unfortunately, the narrative that's out there from a lot of the national media sources is they're vilifying, like you said, mm-hmm. gun owners. And most of us are average, ordinary people that are respectful, that are handling our firearms safely. And the shooting sports and firearm related hobbies are some of the safest as far as injury statistics out there. And I think, unfortunately, there's just that narrative that's trying to villainize and mislead people that aren't around firearms. Because if you've lived in New York City and never been around a firearm, all you know is what the media and those sources are telling you. Yeah. And frankly, they're lying to you.
It's they're either lying or they're ignorant, and neither are excusable. But the reality is it's out there, and so we are left to deal with it and pick up the pieces and do the best we can to provide a winsome argument and a face for gun owners in America.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, it's up to outdoorsmen and women to kind of be a voice of reason, right? Mm-hmm. Like, well, I had a buddy that from college that not around guns ever, doesn't really know anything about it, not a hunter, and he texted me and he's after I forget which of the last major violent things in America, I don't remember, it was probably a year ago or so, and maybe in the last school shooting, and he says, I don't understand why you would need to own an AR, and I'm like, well, I own an AR and it's my right to. And then it's like, all right, I can't take this approach. I need to let him know that it's not just for violence, and talk to him about the calibers and talk to him about it's really, not that mean of a gun. It's just the fact that you could fire a bunch off, in a short amount of time.
So my 7-year-old daughter deer hunted with this
that's
past
what,
year.
not surprisingly, I shouldn't say that. A lot of people's kids hunt with an AR platform because there's not as much recoil, really, a 223. So I tried explaining all that, and it falls on deaf ears, really, for the most part. And then I thought to myself, I need to educate myself more so I can have a more educated not argument, but point of view back to him, because he doesn't know anything but what he saw on the news, which is all bad, literally all bad.
It is.
There's not one good point to having one good reason in the media for owning an AR.
And one thing that we can do when people ask us questions like that is within that question, they're making an assumption. The assumption is an assertion that guns are bad, guns are the source of violence. And so we don't have to make the case. They're essentially making the case by the question they ask. And you can just say, what makes you ask that question?
Yeah, it was interesting going down that rabbit hole, and it was a rabbit hole. It was long text after long text.
I can only imagine.
He hadn't really talked to me since, and that's probably a year or so ago.
It is a deeply emotional because what they're thinking is, well, you're justifying something, and that's not. But when there's an incident and people drive a truck into a crowd of people, no one's lining up at Chevy to protest. And so we have to be careful about not owning that argument, because hunters don't have anything to do with it.
It's guilt by association, though.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Exactly. It's like, well, you own firearms. You're the only person I know that owns firearms, and you own an AR. Okay, why do you think you don't need all these guns? You know, and that's what it boils down to. It's simple. It's a simple approach, simple-minded approach, but that's the only thing they know.
Yeah, exactly. It's out there.
So
it's out there.
Speaking of rabbit holes.
Yeah. So we had a listener generated question. So we want to thank Ethan for chiming in, and Ethan gives us our question of the day.
Yeah. The question of the day is brought to you by Tenzing. Go further, hunt longer, Tenzing.
Hi, this is Ethan Sleeman from Stanley, New York. My question is, when you're practicing for hunting situations, is there specific things that you do to basically put yourself in situations? Or is there a yardage you focus on? Is there a specific drill or a sequence that you go through, or do you just go out and just shoot targets? Just curious. Thanks.
Ethan, thank you for the question. I love Ethan's question because I always think about this when I think of expert marksmen, whether they're archers or firearms guys, riflemen. It just seems like I want to know everything that they know so I can carry that over into the woods. So, Aaron, what is there a difference between target shooting and prepping to hunt?
It's an interesting question, because whether you're shooting targets in a target environment or you're getting ready for hunting, it's not a glamorous answer, but it all boils down to fundamentals. On the shooting side. Mm-hmm. The other aspect is the mental side. So, which is even greater than the physical skills of shooting, especially in a hunting scenario like this man is talking. And everyone wants that one thing that you should do or whatnot. But if you focus on the fundamentals of, putting the gun up right, being steady, trigger control, and those fundamentals, that's where you need to spend your time when you're out on the range. If you can do those well, then you're going to make the shots within your effective range well. Now, the mental side is actually the little more tricky side, because we've all been out hunting and had the old buck fever, where our mind starts racing. And learning how to control that, whether you're a target shooter or hunter, is a big part of getting to that next level as a shooter or hunter. I perform in front of live audiences from 30 people to 600 or 700 people at some events. And you have to learn to control your mind. Just like when that nice deer steps out, you have to come back to what's my focus here? You want to quiet your mind. And there's a little thing that I like to do, whether I'm hunting for big game or if I'm going to do one of the more difficult shots in the live show, is just take a deep breath, relax, and then laser focus on what I need to do. So I've already made the decision that I'm going to shoot this deer. Now you forget everything else that's going on around you. You've already know it's a safe shot and all of that stuff. Now I'm only focused on where's the heart and the right angle and waiting for that opportunity. And by doing that, you take a lot of that anxiety and stress off of you to make the shot. When I pull the trigger or release the arrow, I know inside my heart and mind that it's a done deal. You just have that confidence from training and doing it. With regard to what he's saying, or asking in setups for training. So focus on the fundamentals, but then something that's nice to do is also to put yourself in a little bit awkward situations where maybe there's a high stress. Something you can do is just, do some jumping jacks and then sit down and try and make a good 100-yard shot. What that does is it elevates your heart rate, kind of like when that big buck steps out and your heart rate elevates, and allows you to work on controlling and focusing to make the shot that you need to do. So fundamentals, working on your mental aspect and controlling your emotions when it comes up is going to be the key things to making good shots when you're out hunting.
We used to do that to people on dream season. Back in the early days of dream season, we had those competitions. We'd make them run 100 yards and then pick up their bow and try to, shoot a 50-yard shot or whatever, 100-yard shot. And it is interesting to see what that does to a person and just, the breathing and all that. And I always think of a couple things very much like what Aaron's saying here. Jim Thome, prolific home run hitter, Hall of Famer, first ballot guy, obviously been a longtime jury outdoors guy. He always has a phrase. He says, slow the game down. You slow the game down. And those guys, those home run hitters, they always talk about being able to see literally the stitching on the ball, which is just, 100-mile-an-hour fastball. It's unbelievable to even think about. But he always says, slow the game down. And he often says that about deer hunting. Whatever the weapon may be. And then Pete Shepley, and I know this is archery oriented, but I think the crossover probably works both ways, but he always talks about mentally talking about the, when the big buck steps out, the mental side is a whole different story. He always says, give yourself a job, give yourself, something to do or focus on something, and you won't be focused on the antlers, and so for me, it's always, because of what we do, there's always a couple extra cameras or, these point of view action cameras. It's like, flipping those cameras on, making sure they're recording, making sure the angle's right, looking at all that other stuff usually helps me take my mind off of the excitement level of the task at hand. And, that's not to say that practicing and the moment of truth has anything to do with that. But at the moment of truth, giving yourself a job does seem to help calm yourself down somewhat. I don't know. Yeah, no. And I think about my buddy Jake. We've been friends since we were little, and he enlisted, and we hunted and fished all the time growing up, and squirrel hunted a lot as kids. And he told me once he got out, he said, when I was in basic, the rifle range instructor, he asked all the hunters to raise their hand. And he put all the hunters on one side and all the non-hunters on the other side. He's like, okay, all the non-hunters, you guys are going to outperform the hunters on the rifle range, even though this is the first time holding a gun in your hands, because you've not established the bad habits that I know these guys have. Interesting. And it was true. I mean, you think about most hunters, and this is for myself included, we don't really go through any kind of formal training. And even the shooting we do,
it may be, there may be a lot of it kind of episodically, but it's not long term. It's not ongoing, and you just kind of figure out what works for you.
It's once a year.
And you go,
the week before, the day before gun season.
If you're successful, sometimes not even that. And so I just wonder, kind of, Aaron, from your perspective, what bad habits do most hunters have, and especially guys that have this self-confidence that I'm a hunter, I've shot before, I'm a killer, I know how to use this thing.
Because it's two different things, like being able to shoot something, that you're, a whitetail or a turkey or whatever, a duck, whatever, and being good on the range. They are vastly different.
Or having 700 people pay to see you do something.
Well, that's a whole different level.
Yeah.
Well, I think what you said is okay. I forgot the question. I'll be honest.
we rambled. It's kind of our fault.
Yeah.
So
it's your fault.
Let's own it. I mean, 100%. Right.
All right.
What bad habits do most hunters have that they maybe don't even realize?
Well, there's two that come to mind. One is that they don't shoot their gun until the day before hunting season. So they really haven't put in the practice to be a good marksman and to be familiar and comfortable with their firearm or their bow. The other thing is that they're not coachable. And you kind of touched on it with what you were just saying there a second ago, was people that have been shooting, whether it's just hunting all their life, tend to, I know what I'm doing. And you want to have an open mindset to the new, somebody telling you how to do something different.
Yeah.
Because I've seen it many times when I've been at events or something, and you take somebody that's hunted or shot their whole life, and they ask you how to fix something, and you try telling them what to do, and they're like, wow, they've got it figured out. You can take a new shooter, and they will actually listen to you, and you can put them in the right position and get them hitting targets better than this person that has been hunting or shooting all their life. Mm-hmm. And I will say that women are far better at listening when it comes to coaching than most men.
You always hear that, whether it's archery, firearms. Like, I have heard that forever, that women and children are the easiest to coach up
because they will ask for and listen to directions. What? Guys are not so good at listening or asking for directions.
Yep. The guys always have a little bit of an ego, so they're a little bit harder to. Not everybody. I mean, there's men that are very good at taking some correction in this and that. You definitely got to get past
married men.
Don't hit me. and part of that, I think part of what's built into that, and I'm glad you said that, Aaron, is humility.
Yeah.
If you are so proud that you are the top dog and no one else can teach you anything, well, you're just kind of screwed. But if you're humble enough to recognize that, okay, this person may have a different skill set or higher skills than what I have, I need to learn from them, then you've got, there's hope for you.
But I wonder, and Aaron, you might be able to answer this. Are some people do they just not have the skill set or ability? We were on that Winchester Summit deal. We were doing the trap shoot or whatever. Is that the one you're on the course, right? Yeah.
There's sporting clays.
It must have been the sporting clay one, because we were on, it was like
different configurations.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And Alan Treadwell was in my group, and he's like an Olympic, former Olympics like caliber.
Who set these groupings,
dude? And I sucked real bad.
Let's make Matt look terrible.
And so he was great. He was giving all of us really good advice, and I mean, I got marginally better, but ultimately I've thought, I wonder if, like, is it like the preconceived bad habits, or do I just suck? Is it genetics? Am I able to get better? Because it sure didn't seem that way, but it was just one afternoon.
Well, we all have different levels of skill that we're kind of born with. There's a lot of hand-eye coordination that goes into shooting plays, especially out of the air. It's a whole different skill set to shoot, say, snipers or long-range target shooting with rifles. But it's not as much how much skill you're born with as what you train for, what you prepare for. I have seen a few people that I would like, yeah, you maybe don't have the skill set, but overall, most people can, with the proper training, can get quite good at shooting a pistol rifle, a handgun, or a bow. As long as it fits them properly, they've got a good coach, and they're willing to stick with it to get through some of the hard stuff of learning something new.
So let's talk about some fundamentals of shooting, maybe things that guys are overlooking or ladies are overlooking when they're out in hunting scenarios. I know you mentioned earlier just shouldering the gun in and of itself, that there's a way to do that, right?
Yeah, it depends on if you're talking rifle hunting or shotgunning.
Let's go with shotgun because squirrel seasons are going to start opening up and dove seasons over the summertime. It's probably the closest thing we got coming.
Yeah. So one mistake that you see with people mounting the gun, a shotgun in specifically, is that they put the gun into their shoulder and then they bring their head down to the stock. What you want to do, I wish I had a gun. I got guns, but they're all boxed up behind me. What you want to do is you want to bring the gun up to your face and then back into your shoulder. And when shooting a shotgun, whether you're when you're shooting aerial targets, it's very important that the gun fits you properly, such as length of pull, from the trigger to the butt of the gun. And there's other terminology I just won't get into because it's too complex maybe for this. But the reason it's so important with shotgunning is that your eye is basically the rear sight on a shotgun. And so if it's not placed in the precise spot that it's supposed to be, you looking directly down the barrel, you're not going to be consistent. And if you don't have a consistent mount, putting your head in the same place every single time, you're not going to be as consistent shooting it. It's a little bit different when you're shooting turkeys because you're usually using a sight and you're aiming it.
Sure.
What I'm talking about is more on those aerial, whether you're duck hunting or maybe at a shooting anything that's moving.
More or less instinct shooting.
Yes, but it's very important to get that eye directly down the rib at the right height to be consistent. And, we're all made differently. Some of us are longer necks, longer arms, shorter arms, and all of that comes into play with a shotgun. So you really want to find a shotgun that's going to fit you well. If you don't, you're not going to shoot it to the best of your ability or capability.
And when you look at fit, you're looking at length of pull, but what other factors are important?
Length of pull, the drop it comb, cast.
Say that again. I'd not heard that before.
The drop it comb is basically how far the stock drops from the receiver.
Okay.
The cast is which way the stock is basically bent off the receiver. It's different for left and right-handed shooters. Most of your factory guns are going to come with a pretty straight or standard cast. Okay. But those are all things like the gun industry primarily makes their firearms for a 5'9", 165-pound male. That's kind of what they're designing them for. And we don't all fit that. And so we got to find what fits and what works and make those adjustments. Some guns, like the Winchester SX4, you can extend the length of pull and different things. And there's some different ways you can change the drop it comb and stuff using a pad and different things on some of those guns as well.
I kind of get the feeling like when you're at Cabela's or Bass Pro and you see folks in the back kind of holding guns and shouldering them, that many don't know exactly what it is that they're looking for in that particular instant. And so kind of knowing what you're looking for going in is probably pretty important, but also the authority of the person there that's helping you out, I assume.
That's just it. It's nice to have a coach that understands the terminology, that can look at how the gun fits you and then, can see the problem. I was at an event last spring where we did our show, then we were doing some training with some people, and there's a family with 3 girls that shot trap. And they, from what they were telling us, shot pretty well, but the one girl was having some issues. And it was pretty easy after looking at the gun and her that it just didn't fit her anymore. She had grown out of it. She'd been shooting it for a couple years, and the gun didn't fit her. And with a little bit of tweaking of some things and tell her dad, what he needed to look for, she was shooting a lot better. We actually had her switch a gun that fit her better right there. And then she started hitting the targets, so things like shooting over the bird or under the bird can all be a matter of just having your eye placed in the right spot. And if the gun doesn't fit you, it doesn't naturally go there.
And that's scary to me, because if you don't have a gun fitted for your kids, and it ends up not being a great experience for them because you're kind of handicapping them, it could change the trajectory of their hunting life. Like, they may decide, I can't hit the broadside of the barn. Hunting is not for me.
Or, you're putting a weapon that's probably got a little too much oomph behind it in their hands, and it, just the recoil.
I had a close call with Sophie, taking her off for turkey season 2 years ago. I borrowed a gun from a buddy, a 20 gauge, and she was just a tiny little thing. He's like, oh yeah, it'll be fine for her. So I took her and the gun out to the range, and I put the first round through it. I was like, this thing kicks like a mule. To me, there's no way. I didn't even have her touch it, but I just realized how close I came to terrifying her of guns at that moment.
I wish you could have spoken with my dad and time traveled back to 1987.
You got traumatized.
Oh my God. It was probably more like 91. I don't know. It was, they were filming. It was Mark, Dad, and they borrowed a gun from Steve Stoltz, who was a Drury Outdoors team member at the time. And they asked him if it kicked. And I guarantee you, if you ask Mark or Terry, they remember exactly what gun it was. I don't know if it was a Mossberg, whatever. I know they used to shoot those a lot because Mark was winning them back then, and Steve back in the turkey calling contest days. But they, I was probably 12, I don't know. And they were filming some actual tips and pieces for, it may have been Outdoor Life or Field and Stream or one of those deals. They were doing some videos for them, and they put me up against a tree that's probably, 1.5 inches, 2 inches in diameter as my rest. And nobody shot the gun before they let me shoot the gun. And I fired a round off in that thing, and it basically wrapped my shoulder around that little bitty tree, and I didn't shoot a gun. It had me so gun shy
no doubt.
For it was years. And finally, to get me kind of out of that funk, because I was just like, I'm good. I don't want to go. I don't want to go. I was young enough to where it just screwed me up.
Sure.
And finally, Yapper, one of Dad's, and another longtime jury guy, one of Dad's best friends, or Dad's best friend, and he's like, you should have that boy shoot a 22, and so they took me back, and I didn't even want to pull the trigger on that. And I remember it to this day vividly, both instances, when I shot the gun that really screwed me up, and then the first shot through the 22, being so afraid of the recoil. And you just got to really watch out for those things, man. It like, to your point, if we didn't do what we do for a living, I don't know that I would have come back to it at all.
Sure.
It's just like, all right, I'm good, man. Well, let me shoot the bow.
Yeah. It's scary. So it does make sense to know the fit and make sure you got the right gun for the right frame. I think about that with my wife, trying to get her. She did not want to touch the shotgun, but the AR she loves because it has an adjustable stock on it, and the kick isn't too bad. But all those things are just so important to how people view and relate to the firearms.
Got to be comfortable.
Guys, a real important point there is that a person's first experience with a firearm or the outdoors in general is very important. And Matt, you were talking about your friend that didn't seem too gun friendly. And one of the best ways to get people over that is to take them to the range if they're willing, and show them a fun, enjoyable time, how safe that can happen. And specifically to like the young people, don't do what so many guys unfortunately did back in the day, is like, here's a 12 gauge, now go shoot it to their 8-year-old boy. And, it's not enjoyable. So
no, it wasn't.
I've got 3 boys. The oldest 2 are 6 and 4, and I've had them shooting a 22. They love it. And when they're ready, I'll move them up to maybe a 20 gauge or whatever. And not all 20 gauges are created equal either. Over and under kicks harder typically. I'm kind of just throwing this out there, but an over under kicks harder than a pump, and a pump kicks harder than a semi-auto. So those are some things to keep in mind. When you bring somebody out, make it fun, make it safe, and when they're done shooting, be done. If it's three rounds, if it's 1 round, or if it's 30, let them have fun. And I've been out to events. We've had people come up to us after the event, and I can specifically remember a couple ladies that have came up, and they were like, I don't like guns. I didn't want to come, but my boys wanted to come see you guys. They'd seen you online. And after watching your show and seeing that guns can be handled safely, they're not these big scary things. I'm a lot more interested. I'm still a little scared.
Yeah.
I'm still scared, but I'm willing to look at them in a different light now. And, great. I mean, that person dropped their guard a little bit, lowered those walls a little bit. And now if someone can pick up at that point, bring them out, show them a good time, you might just have another outdoor enthusiast, shooter, or what have you. But that's the way you break down those walls and introduce people to the outdoors, shooting, hunting, everything.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm so glad. Again, I'm so glad you guys are doing that. And there's another concept at play here. It's called putting a stone in someone's shoe. You give them something to think about. Like, you don't necessarily have to win the guns, are they good or bad argument right then and there, because the reality is you're probably not going to. But if you provide a positive one experience, you put a stone in their shoe, a thought in their head that over time may ruminate and may turn into more acceptance. So that's so great that you guys are doing that.
Thanks.
So what's next for you guys? I mean, I assume that you're constantly trying to push the limits of your abilities and train and do the next cool thing or the next big thing. Are you guys have any shows coming up that you're looking forward to, unveiling any new, tricks, or what do you have up your sleeve?
Well, we've got a few different things that we're putting into the show. Some of them are still not quite show ready. What you do on video and what you can do live are a lot of times different.
Sure.
So before we put something into a live show, we're looking at, about a 70 to 80% first time attempt that we can complete the shot. Some shows don't always go that way. You always drop a few shots, and that's what sometimes makes it fun. But we got a couple shows coming up. Like I mentioned a little earlier, we do a lot of corporate and private events, and that's not any different this year. We've got a couple public events for people in the Midwest. We've got the Vortex Nation Block Party on June 22nd, I believe. Yeah, June 22nd. And then September 21st and 22nd, we're going to be at Missouri River Expo. And if you've never been to that event, it's in Northeast Nebraska. It's at Ponca State Park. It's an amazing event for hands-on things. If you got kids, bring them there. You can shoot everything from BB guns to shotguns. You can throw axes, addles. It's just I enjoy going there, walking around and throwing different things that I don't always get to do day in and day out. We'll be performing there every day of the event, and so come out and see us at one of those events.
I just imagine Aaron walking through the crowd and grabbing an axe and throwing it at a target, and then walking over here and he's got addle, like, boom. It's kid and candy store.
I would like to see that.
Yes.
That's awesome. Yeah, so we'll make sure that we link up your guys' schedule. And the website is gouldbrothers.com. Is that right?
Brothers.com. You can find us on YouTube under the same name, Gould, our last name, Gould Brothers, as well as Facebook and Instagram.
Cool.
I feel like you guys could also have like a pizza company or something. The Gould Brothers.
No, that's racist.
Well, I'm just saying. It seems like it.
So if the shooting thing doesn't work out, then maybe
can you make pizza?
I like to eat pizza.
That's half the battle.
You know what you like.
Well, Aaron, do you want to stick around for the wildlife word segment?
Sure.
Speaking of pizza,
this will blow your mind.
Who's bringing us the wildlife word segment this week?
Well, the wildlife word segment is brought to you by I don't know
nobody.
Aaron Gould, the Gould
Yeah,
Brothers.
the Gould Brothers. Nice job. The check will be in the mail. Right?
You really had me thinking. I'm like, do we have a
Crap,
sponsor?
do we have a sponsor?
Looking at my notes.
So speaking of pizza,
It's brought to you by DeerCast.
yeah, there you go. That's our default sponsor. So the word is mycelium. You guys ever heard of the word mycelium?
No, but the other day when I was hanging at elk, I thought the rack was going to hit mycelium.
Jeez. Do we have to keep... Can we just stop the show?
That was good.
Do we have to keep doing the show, guys, or can we just...
Whatever. Aaron, pretend like you laugh at that part.
But you see, it's funny because...
What these guys don't realize is off the air, we were just talking about how we tell jokes that only we laugh at our own jokes.
Yep.
Here we got it.
People are seeing that.
So what's your word definition today?
So mycelium is essentially, so I'll read it, but it's essentially the root system of fungus. So a lot of people are collecting morels right now. It's the vegetative part of a fungus consisting of a network of white filaments called hyphae. It's essentially the root system of fungus. When you have good mycelium, you typically have a lot more morels popping up, and under the ground, these things live and they're kind of dormant, but then mycelium pops up the fruiting parts of the fungus, and that's what gives us delicious morels in the springtime.
I see.
Mycelium.
Now you know, Aaron.
I learned something new today.
Hey, there's some productive aspect of joining us on the show today.
Oh, let's not go that far.
Well, so we'll make sure that folks can find you social media wise, and obviously your guys' videos are in DeerCast. It's all like the best of 2018 stuff. That's what we're showcasing in DeerCast. So.
I would highly recommend looking these guys up. I had first started seeing their videos in Winchester because they're partners with Winchester, and I follow Winchester's social media pages. I was always seeing their videos pop up. I honestly, like the first few times I saw it, I'm like, man, what's the deal with these guys are freaking awesome.
Yeah.
And it's been neat to be able to meet these guys and know them on a personal level and see kind of their story and hear their story of how hard they work to get to where they are. But I'd highly recommend for an entertaining follow to go check these guys out
and subscribe to their channel on YouTube.
Absolutely.
So, and make sure that you've registered for the farm giveaway. That's still in effect.
That's right. This month, by the time this airs, are we still in May or are we in June?
The morel, still in May, still the morel target giveaway. Do we want to leak what the June?
Yeah, sure.
It's a lacrosse prize package.
Yeah, and it's a pretty good one, actually. I mean, it covers every season, if I recall, right?
Boots and waders and pretty much anything you want to do outdoors, they're going to cover your feet with this package.
Yeah, so all you got to do, it's simple. We've said it before. Head over to DeerCast. If you don't have the DeerCast app, download it. We're getting closer to deer season anyways. We got all kinds of cool stuff coming up in DeerCast that we're getting ready to unveil this summer. And it's as easy as it's literally a 5-second deal once you get in there to register. And you registered for the farm giveaway, you registered for every monthly prize. And we got some happy winners so far. We just had the RTP Groundbreaker 3, right?
Yeah. Mike
delivered
up in West Central Illinois, I should say, got the Groundbreaker 3, and he was
elated, man.
Well,
he was elated. That was awesome.
He's very excited. Someone that'll really appreciate and put that thing to good use.
Absolutely.
He talked about hooking up to his ATV and pulling it through his little town's annual parade.
Now that's being proud of a farm implement.
To the people. Yeah. Throw candy from it.
So these prizes are real. We're really giving them away. Not to mention all the other stuff that we have happening on the farm that we're giving away itself. They just stocked the ponds. They literally went in and stocked all the ponds just a week or two ago, and we did a timber evaluation. So we filmed all these pieces. They're going to be coming up in the app in the farm giveaway section, and so we're going to tell you how much the timber's worth. Show you the stock in the pond segment, and then I think we're going to have a realtor come in, a land specialist come in and give us a evaluation on what the actual ground is worth. So
now that we've done all of the improvements,
yeah, exactly. So it's a cool deal, man, and like I said, it's as easy as 1, 2, 3. So check it out.
1, 2, 3. Why don't we shut this thing down?
Let's do it.
All right. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Peace. We're adding new videos every week, so make sure to click that subscribe button and check out all of our amazing content. This episode of DoD TV is brought to you by OnX Hunt, the nation's #1 GPS hunting app.